Trust. There are several flavors of trust. As I mentioned, the prior document was a last will and testament, and we can have a testamentary trust. That's a trust provision or paragraph baked into a last will and testament, testamentary trust. Then we have the living trusts. Living is when you're alive. You make the trust while you're living. You can have a living revocable trust, living irrevocable trust. You can have these trusts, either one, in place of a will. It's a probate avoidance vehicle, and it's a will substitute. And then you can have a special needs trust. That's beyond the scope of today's webinar. That type of trust is for a disabled person that is on government benefits and to try to preserve the government benefits. Now, I'll give you an example, some facts. New York State Bar Association has an elder law and special needs planning section. They group the elderly and the special needs person together because they both apply for similar government benefits. And it doesn't mean that the elderly person, the elder, doesn't have special needs, because they could. And it doesn't mean that the special needs person is not elderly, because eventually they may be. But those two categories of person are lumped together because the special needs trust is the type of document that services both of their needs. What is a trust? It's created when you're living. It's a legal entity that operates indefinitely. It outlives you. So we create a trust, and then we put assets into the trust. And that's what it really boils down to. And there's some circumstances here and some complications and some things to go through, but that's the general thing that we do. This is the type of common estate plan that we're going to talk about. It's a living trust. What is it? It's a separate legal entity. It is not a corporation, but that's a good way to imagine it or think about it. It's a legal entity that is set up. It can have its own EIN number. It can own things. So we create the Bruno Living Trust, and we retitle my home and put it into the Bruno Living Trust. We retitle my brokerage account and put it into the Bruno Living Trust. And then in the event that I pass away, and since I'm not a vampire, there will come a time that I do pass away, the trust itself will continue to live and take the steps that I want. I might say within my trust, upon my passing, I want the property to be sold and the assets divided in 3. I may say upon my passing, I want any individual assets I own to go to my wife. It'd be simple like that. What you do is you transfer the title or ownership of your asset to the name of the trust. And that would be for bank accounts, real estate, brokerage accounts, the ownership of life insurance policies. And in this Bruno Living Trust, I can also direct what's going to happen to my law office or any other asset, and what could happen to it and what I'd like to happen to it should I have an incapacity. So if I become incapable of handling my affairs, I might say I want the property located at 123 Main Street to be sold, or I want it to be managed by the trust. So if I'm disabled, I'd like the trust to collect rent and pay the mortgage and pay the bills and pay the expenses. I can direct that inside of the trust. Then I can have one trustee or co-trustee to manage the assets. The trustees have complete control over the management of the assets as directed within the trust. So the trustee, if permitted, can buy or sell or mortgage or do anything permissible with assets in the trust. So if they have a brokerage account and I have fantastic stock, Tesla and Microsoft and Amazon, and I want to keep it, well, the trustee can do that. If, on the other hand, these stocks or the holdings aren't doing as well, they can be actively managed by the trustee. They follow the trust's specific instructions within the trust. Paying debt, distributing benefits to beneficiaries. Beneficiaries will also be named in the trust. They receive the benefit of the trust upon your death. Now, a revocable living trust, the terms can be changed at any time by the grant. So as you age, as your family circumstances change, you can change your trust to reflect those changes. You can change trustees, beneficiaries, or any instructions.